There are still days when I can't fully wrap my head around everything that happened. Technically, Maya and I are still married, though only on paper. The only reason we're not officially divorced yet is because of how the system works where we live. You've got to be legally separated for an entire year before you're allowed to finalize a divorce, which honestly just feels like a pointless delay at this stage. During this so-called cooling-off period, the plan was for Maya to move into her own place nearby. That way, we could split custody of our 3 kids evenly 50-50, like we agreed. Now, why are we even getting divorced? Buckle up, because it's a story. It all started when Maya's twin sister, Nina, came up with what she clearly thought was a genius plan. Nina and her husband, Derek, had been struggling to have a baby, and instead of going through traditional options like adoption or hiring a surrogate, they decided Maya should carry their child. Why? Because she's Nina's identical twin. Apparently, that made her the perfect candidate. I mean, I get it. Infertility is heartbreaking. I genuinely feel for them. But out of all the routes they could have taken, they chose the one that turned my marriage upside down. And the worst part? I didn't even know about any of it until way after the wheels were already in motion. This whole thing had been planned weeks before I had any idea. There was no sit-down conversation, no moment of honesty or clarity. Nothing. Instead, Maya brought it up like she was mentioning what she wanted for dinner. I remember it vividly. We were just lounging on the couch, and she was scrolling through her phone when she suddenly said, "I've been thinking about doing something really meaningful for Nina." I looked over, confused. What kind of meaningful thing? That's when she finally glanced up from her phone and said, with a straight face, "I'm going to be her surrogate." First, I thought she was messing with me. I let out this awkward half-laugh, waiting for the joke to land. But she just sat there, dead serious, like she expected me to smile and cheer her on. "Wait, hold on," I said, sitting up straighter. "You mean, you're actually going to carry their baby?" She nodded, beaming like she just told me we were going on vacation. "Yeah, Nina and Derek have been trying for so long. And since we're identical twins, it's basically like Nina's having her own child." I felt this wave of nausea hit me. My stomach sank. "Maya, are you serious right now? When did this even come up?" She gave a little shrug. "A few weeks ago. We've been talking about it for a while now." I just stared at her, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. "And you didn't think I deserved to know about it before now?" She sighed and put her phone down. "Ethan, this isn't about you. It's my body, my decision. I don't need your permission." "Permission?" I repeated, stunned. "Maya, we're married. This isn't just some minor choice. This is huge. It affects both of us. How could you not think to talk it over with me first?" She rolled her eyes. "Well, I'm telling you now." "Oh, great. Now that you've already made up your mind," I said, feeling the heat rise in my chest. "That's not how a marriage works, Maya." Her face hardened, and her tone turned cold. "I knew you'd react like this. That's why I waited. But this is happening, Ethan. Whether you like it or not." I let out a slow breath and shook my head. "So that's it, huh? Either I get on board or—" She crossed her arms. "Or maybe we should rethink things." And there it was. She didn't come right out and say it, but the message was loud and clear. Support her decision or hit the road. Couldn't believe it. It wasn't just the surrogacy that broke me, though that was definitely a major part. What really shattered me was how they'd gone about it. Maya, Nina, and Derek had all been planning this behind my back for weeks, maybe longer, and I was just supposed to be okay with it. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "If you go through with this, we're done." Her face twisted with anger. "You're being completely unreasonable." I let out a bitter laugh. Not because I found it funny, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Unreasonable? Maya, you made a life-altering decision without even talking to me. And you don't see a problem with that?" She shook her head, clearly frustrated. "I'm doing something beautiful for my sister. I thought you'd understand." I stood up and ran a hand through my hair, trying to calm myself down. "Yeah, well, turns out I don't." Fast forward a few months. And guess what? She's pregnant. When she told me, I didn't say much, just nodded and walked out of the room. 2 days later, I filed for divorce. I'd already had the paperwork ready from the week she told me her plan. I was just waiting to see if she'd actually go through with it. Apparently, that decision caught everyone off guard. Maya acted like it came out of nowhere, like she was completely blindsided. Which blows my mind, honestly. Did she think I was bluffing? That I'd just magically be fine with my wife carrying someone else's child? I laid it all out for her. Told her exactly what would happen if she went ahead with it. And now she had the nerve to act surprised. Nina and Derek didn't handle it much better. They tried laying on the guilt thick like I was abandoning some noble cause. You're leaving your wife when she needs you the most, Nina told me, shaking her head like I was some heartless villain. I laughed cold and dry. She's the one who made this choice. Not me. Derek, always the peacemaker, tried his best to smooth things over. Ethan, this is something truly beautiful she's doing. Can't you see that? Oh, I see it, I said, arms crossed. I see that you two wanted a baby and Maya volunteered her body without ever asking her husband how he felt about it. That's not how a marriage works. That's not a partnership. That's her making a decision all on her own. And now she can deal with what comes next. Nina narrowed her eyes. You vowed to stand by her no matter what. And she vowed to respect me, I shot back, and not make life-changing decisions behind my back. So here we are. And that was the breaking point. I filed the paperwork and our separation officially began. At first, Maya acted like none of it fazed her. She kept the smug, self-righteous attitude like she was above it all. I don't need you, she said one night after I told her I was finished having the same argument over and over. I can handle this on my own. Perfect, I replied. Then go ahead and do just that. But as time went on, reality started creeping in. All of a sudden, that confident version of Maya started to fade. She wasn't in control anymore, not like she thought she'd be. After I filed for divorce, the atmosphere at home became suffocating. The tension was so thick it felt like you could cut it with a knife. But Maya? She acted like nothing had changed. Like I was still supposed to care about her pregnancy. Worse, like I should actually be part of it somehow. Meanwhile, I had already checked out emotionally, mentally, the whole 9 yards. Why would I pour energy into a pregnancy that wasn't even mine? One that was, ironically, the reason our marriage was falling apart in the first place? Of course, she never moved out. Finding a rental in our area wasn't easy, especially not while pregnant. She kept saying she wanted to stay close for the kids' sake, but let's be honest, that was only half the truth. The other half was convenience. Anytime she needed something, she still expected me to step in like I was still her husband. One night she strolled into the living room while I was watching TV and said, "Can you run to the store for me?" I didn't even glance her way. What for? Pickles and maybe some ice cream. I let out a dry chuckle. Yeah, that's not really my job anymore. She let out this dramatic sigh, like I was being unreasonable. Ethan, come on. It's just a quick trip. That's when I finally turned toward her. Maya, I'm not your husband anymore. Ask Nina. Ask Derek. Let them take care of it. Her jaw clenched, but she didn't argue. Just turned around and walked away. As the weeks rolled on, the passive hints started piling up. How stressed she was. How hard things had become. How much she had to do on her own. At first, I ignored it all. I mean, what did she expect? That I'd swoop in like I used to during her earlier pregnancies, rub her feet, hold her hair back, run errands, the whole thing? Back then, it made sense. Those were our kids. This time? This was something she and her sister had decided to do without me. I hadn't signed up for any of it. Eventually, her subtle hints turned into direct complaints. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this without you, she said one night, rubbing her belly like it was supposed to tug at my heartstrings. I barely looked up from my laptop. Call Nina. Or Derek. She let out a frustrated breath. It's not fair that I have to go through this alone. I closed my laptop slowly and looked her straight in the eye. Fair? You really want to talk about fair? Because I don't think it was fair to make a life-altering decision behind my back. But here we are. She didn't have a response. Just tightened her lips and looked away like a kid who didn't want to be told they were wrong. I kept saying the same thing. Nina and Derek were the ones who pushed for this baby. They were the ones talking about how magical and beautiful this whole surrogacy journey would be. So let them step up. But of course, they were nowhere to be found most of the time. Derek especially. He popped in for the big moments, doctor's appointments, the occasional baby-related chore, but on the day-to-day stuff? Total ghost? One night, curiosity got the better of me and I asked, "Where's Derek been lately?" I thought he was supposed to be all in on this. Maya shifted in her seat, obviously uncomfortable. He's been taking care of Nina. She's still recovering from her car accident. Fair enough, I'll give her that. But it's not like he didn't know this baby was coming. He had months to prepare. Shouldn't he have planned ahead? I asked. Maya's face tightened. He's doing his best. He's just under a lot of stress right now. I scoffed. Yeah? And you think you're the only one? She didn't reply, but I could tell she knew I was right. Derek had a convenient out and he was leaning on it hard. Meanwhile, Maya kept trying to lean on me. Like I was still part of her support system. It started with small favors, carrying bags, lifting boxes, setting up the crib. Even asked me to rub her back a couple of times when it was sore. Every single time I shut it down. Ethan, can you help me with this? Nope. Not my kid. Not my responsibility. One night, it finally boiled over. She was on the couch again, rubbing her belly and sighing dramatically, trying to get my attention like always. I ignored her for as long as I could, but eventually she spoke. You know, she said, irritation in her voice, you're still my husband. You could at least act like you care. That was it? I snapped. No, Maya. I'm not your husband. Not in any way that matters, I said, standing up and locking eyes with her. You made your choice the moment you decided to go behind my back. Don't come to me now because you're realizing this is harder than you thought it would be. Call Derek. Call Nina. Call literally anyone else. But leave me out of it. Her face crumpled, and right on cue, the waterworks started. That had become her go-to move whenever things didn't go her way. But I was done. Numb to it. I'm going to bed, I said flatly, and walked out while she sat there sobbing on the couch. The next few weeks were just more of the same. She kept trying to guilt-trip me into helping, and I kept drawing the line. It wasn't just about boundaries though, yeah, that was a big part of it. It was also about principle. Because I knew the moment I gave in even a little, she'd take it as a sign I was softening. That maybe, just maybe, I was still in this. And then I'd never be free. Things took a turn when the baby finally arrived. I stayed completely out of it. Didn't go to the hospital. Didn't send flowers. Didn't even ask how it went. I had already told her months before that I wouldn't be involved when the time came. It wasn't a surprise. Still, she called me from the hospital, crying. Begging. Ethan, please, she sobbed into the phone. I don't want to do this alone. I'm scared. Her voice came through the phone, small and shaky. But I kept mine steady. Calm. Unshaken. You made the choice to let another man put a baby inside you, I said plainly. That was your call, Maya. You did that all on your own, so don't drag me into it now. Derek's the one who got you pregnant. Maybe you should try calling him. She let out a shaky breath. I did. He's not answering. Then call Nina. Or your mom. This isn't my mess to clean up. This is their baby. Not mine. You're being cruel, she whispered, her voice thick with tears. I sighed through my nose. No, Maya. I'm doing exactly what I said I would. You knew where I stood from the start. None of this should be a surprise. She didn't say another word. A second later, the line went dead. When she came home from the hospital with the baby, that's when the real storm hit. It was like she honestly believed that showing up with the baby would flip a switch in me. That I'd suddenly start caring. Spoiler alert, I didn't. She started leaving baby stuff scattered all over the place, bottles on the counter, diapers on the couch, like it was some kind of mind game. Like she was trying to force me to acknowledge the baby by just leaving its presence everywhere. But I didn't bite. I stepped over the clutter and kept going with my day like nothing had changed. Nighttime? Even worse. The baby would start crying, and soon enough there'd be a knock on my bedroom door. Ethan, please, just this once. Can you help? She'd beg, her voice completely drained. Nope, I'd say without moving an inch. Come on, she huffed. It's 3 a.m. I haven't slept in days. Your baby. Your responsibility. Go handle it, I replied, still lying there. Not my kid. Not my problem. There'd be silence for a beat, then the sound of her stomping back down the hall, slamming the door on her way out. The next morning, she'd be banging cabinets and muttering under her breath about what a horrible man I was. And yeah, there were moments where I felt a little bit of guilt. Not because I thought I was wrong, but because that baby didn't ask for any of this. It was innocent in all this chaos. But even knowing that, I still didn't step in. Because helping out even a little would have just given Maya permission to keep leaning on me instead of the people who actually signed up for this situation. Then came the breaking point. One night, she just snapped. You can't keep pretending this isn't happening, she barked, standing in front of me with the baby on her hip. It's not fair that I'm doing all of this alone. I barely looked up from my laptop. Then called Derek. I did. He's with Nina again. I shrugged. Still not my baby. Still not my problem. Her eyes flared. You are so goddamn selfish. You owe me this much. That got my attention. I shut the laptop and stared her dead in the face. I don't owe you a damn thing, I said, my voice flat and firm. You're acting like I cheated on you, she screamed. I stood up, calm but done. I don't care if you slept with the baby's biological father or if it was all done in some clinic. The bottom line is you got pregnant by another man without even talking to me first. That's the disrespect. That's where you broke us. I told you from the beginning I wasn't okay with it. There were going to be consequences. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. You said it was your body, your choice, I continued. Well, now it's my life and this is my choice. This was never my responsibility. Handle it. That was it. That was the moment something inside her cracked. You're a heartless monster, she spat. One day you're gonna regret this. She stormed off, and for a minute I actually thought that might be the end of it. But about an hour later, she came back. Bag over her shoulder, baby bundled in her arms. I can't do this, she said, her voice trembling. Not with you acting like this. I didn't say a word. Just nodded. She stood there in the doorway for a while like she was waiting for me to stop her, to say something that would change her mind. I didn't. 2 days later, she packed up and left with the baby. And I thought finally, maybe now I'd get a little peace. I wasn't foolish enough to think she was gone for good, but for those couple of days, the silence was golden. No crying baby. No guilt trips. No late-night confrontations. It was like this weight had been lifted off my chest. But nothing ever stays easy when Maya's involved. The calls started the next morning. First it was her mom. Then Nina. Even Derek chimed in. It was like they had formed a tag-team guilt campaign. Every single one of them saying the same thing. Maya was overwhelmed. The baby didn't deserve this. I needed to step up for the family. Nina, in particular, wouldn't let up. She left this long voicemail, her voice dripping with judgment. I honestly can't believe how heartless you've become, Ethan, she said. Maya just had a baby and you left her at her most vulnerable. Is this really who you are? Do you even have a soul? I rolled my eyes and deleted it without a second thought. What was the point? This wasn't a surprise pregnancy we'd planned together. This was a decision Maya made behind my back. A decision I clearly told her I wouldn't support. Then Derek called. The biological dad. Mr. Supportive. He tried to sound sincere, but it came off as fake sympathy. Man, I know things are rough right now, he said. Nina's still recovering from the accident and Maya's really struggling. We're all family, man. We've got to help each other. I almost laughed. Family? I repeated, stunned. Are you serious right now? You barely lifted a finger the entire pregnancy. And now you want to act like we're some big, supportive unit. That's not fair, he pushed back. I'm trying. Then try harder, I snapped. This isn't my kid. This isn't my issue. Step up and handle your business. Even Maya's mom joined the campaign. Usually she's the calm one. But not this time. When she called, her voice was soaked in disappointment. I just don't understand you, Ethan, she said. Maya is still your wife. And you. No, I cut in, calm but clear. She stopped being my wife the moment she chose to carry another man's baby. You care so much? Then maybe you should be the one helping her. Silence on the line. Then a quiet click. She hung up. And I think that was the moment it finally sank in for all of them. I wasn't backing down. A couple days later, Nina showed up at the house. I figured she'd show up again eventually. I just wasn't expecting the scene she brought with her. She walked into the house like she hadn't just cursed me out and stormed off a few days earlier. The baby was strapped to her chest in one of those carriers and she looked completely wiped out, but there was still that fire in her eyes. That stubborn, ready-for-battle look I knew too well. We need to talk, she announced, standing in the middle of the living room like she was about to deliver a speech at some parenting conference. I didn't even bother looking up from what I was working on. About what? I asked dryly. She motioned toward the baby like I was somehow confused. About this. You can't keep pretending we don't exist, she said. I'm not pretending anything, I said flatly. I've made myself perfectly clear. That baby is your responsibility, not mine. And that was her cue. She launched into yet another emotional monologue. How hard things were. How exhausting it was being a single mom. How unfair it was that she had to do everything on her own. Over and over she threw out lines like, this isn't what I signed up for, and I never thought you'd turn your back on me like this. I just let her talk. No point in arguing, it wasn't a conversation. It was a performance. She didn't want a solution. She just wanted someone to blame. When she finally ran out of steam, I looked up and met her eyes. You signed up for this the second you agreed to carry someone else's child. Don't try to dump that decision on me. That set her off. Her voice jumped an octave as she shouted, her face tight with frustration. You're being so damn cruel, Ethan. You have no idea what I'm going through. You think this is easy for me? One day you're going to regret this. I know you will. The baby started wailing, probably scared by all the yelling. She turned toward me furious. Well? Are you just gonna sit there? She snapped. Do something. I shrugged. Not my baby. Not my problem. Her face flushed red as she stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. The baby kept crying. I didn't move an inch. If slamming doors and emotional tantrums made her feel better, fine. But I wasn't about to let her push her problems onto me. That night, she tried a different strategy. No yelling this time. She came into the kitchen while I was cooking dinner, her voice softer, her approach almost gentle. She leaned against the counter, watching me slice vegetables in silence. Then she spoke. I miss how things used to be, she said after a long pause. I didn't even glance her way. Just kept chopping. Well, that makes one of us. She took a small step closer. I mean it, Ethan. I still love you. I want us to be a family again. I scoffed and finally turned to look at her. A family? I raised an eyebrow. That's what this was. You're the one who threw it away. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. Her eyes looked glassy. I made a mistake, she whispered. I set the knife down and crossed my arms. Yeah, you did. She nodded, tears starting to pool. Then came the apology, or some version of one. She said she was sorry for how things turned out, but she still didn't own up to the decision that got us here in the first place. I wasn't buying it. That ship sailed, I said calmly. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. She started crying again, her shoulders shaking as she choked out, I don't want to get divorced. I can't do this on my own. I let out a tired sigh. You don't have to do it alone, I said. You've got Nina and Derek. But that wasn't what she wanted. She didn't want their help. She wanted mine. She was hoping I'd come in like I always had, fix everything, smooth out the chaos. Not this time. You don't want a divorce, I said, turning to her, not because you love me, but because you don't want to lose this lifestyle. You ignored everything I said, got pregnant by someone else, and now you're scared of what comes next. She didn't deny it. Take my advice, I continued. Start getting used to being on your own. Start learning how to handle your own choices. Because the divorce is happening. And this comfort you're used to? It won't be here much longer. That night, as I lay in bed, I could hear her crying from the next room. I didn't feel good about it. But I didn't feel bad either. I felt nothing. And that's when it hit me, it was really over. Whatever connection we used to have. It was gone. She burned it to the ground the day she made her decision. The next morning, she tried one final Hail Mary. She showed up looking completely drained, dark circles under her eyes, hair mess, holding the baby in her arms like she could barely stay standing. Please, she whispered. Just hold her for a little while so I can sleep. I haven't had more than 2 hours in days. For a moment, I almost said yes. Almost. But then I thought about all of it. The lies. The betrayal. The nights I spent wrestling with her choices. No, I said. Her eyes went wide. What? Call Derek, I told her. He's the dad. He should be helping you. Her lip quivered, tears already spilling over. You really hate me that much, don't you? I shook my head. No. I don't hate you. But I'm done letting you make me feel guilty for something I never agreed to. This isn't mine to fix. She left again after that. And this time, it felt final. Her mom called later to let me know Maya was staying with her for now. I told her it was probably for the best. Maybe now I could finally have some space to breathe. 3 days passed. The house was still and quiet. But it wasn't exactly peaceful. There was this lingering feeling in the air like something else was coming. A calm before the storm. And sure enough, I was right. About a week after she left, the letters and emails started pouring in. Maya's family kicked into full gear. Not just the usual guilt-tripping I'd come to expect, this time it was a coordinated effort. Like they thought if they just hit me from enough angles, I'd fold. Maya's mom even sent a handwritten letter, 3 pages long. She went on and on about how unreasonable I was being. How family comes first. How I had an obligation to support Maya. She dredged up stories from Maya's childhood, talked about how much she'd sacrificed, how hard life had been for her, and how I owed it to her to stand by her side. I read her mom's letter, let out a sigh, and tossed it straight into the trash. What was I supposed to do with that? There was nothing new in it, just the same tired accusations. They've been painting me as the villain since day one. At this point, it all just blended into white noise. But Nina and Derek? They decided to get a little more hands-on. Derek actually showed up at my front door one evening completely unannounced. When I opened the door and saw him standing there with that awkward look on his face, I already knew the conversation wasn't going anywhere good. Hey man, he said, trying way too hard to sound casual. Can we talk? I leaned against the doorframe and crossed my arms. Talk about what? He fidgeted like he couldn't decide whether to stay or turn around and leave. Finally, he let out a breath. About the baby. About everything, really. I didn't move an inch. Say what you need to say. He looked caught off guard like he'd expected me to invite him in or something. Yeah, not happening. So he started rambling. Said things had been hard since Nina's accident. That he was juggling a lot. That Maya was overwhelmed. And then, of course, he said he really needed me to step up, for Maya's sake. For Maya's sake, I repeated, cutting him off. My voice was sharp and he flinched. This has nothing to do with me. That's your baby. Your wife's sister agreed to carry it. All of you knew exactly what that meant. So tell me, why the hell are you even here? He looked thrown, stammering a little. It's not just about the baby, Ethan. It's about family. We're all connected in this. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. No, Derek. We're not. He started to open his mouth again, but I didn't give him the chance. You, Nina, and Maya made this decision behind my back. You left me out of it. And now you're here acting like I owe you something? Get real. He tried to argue, but I wasn't in the mood. Leave, I said, stepping back inside. And don't come back unless it's to take full responsibility for your kid. He didn't like it, but what could he do? He stood there for a second, jaw clenched, then muttered something about how I'd regret this someday before walking off. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. But either way, it's not my problem. Maya was still staying at her mom's, and for a brief moment, I let myself believe maybe she was starting to face reality. I was wrong. Instead of owning up, she started using the kids as leverage. One night, she called and asked if she could come over to see them. I said yes because they're still her kids. I wasn't about to keep them from their mom. But the second she walked in, I could tell she had another motive. She spent the whole evening dropping hints, how exhausted she was, how the baby kept her up all night, how she was struggling to get back on her feet. And then she dropped the real bomb. She asked about moving back in. Just until I figure things out, she said. I shut it down right away. No, I told her flatly. You made your decision. You don't get to walk back in here like none of this happened. Her face fell, eyes pleading. Ethan, it's not just about me. The kids need their mother. They have their mother, I replied. You're still their mom, Maya. But that doesn't mean I have to let you live here again. She let out an angry breath. This isn't fair to me or to them. You're tearing our family apart. I scoffed. No. You did that. You chose to blow up our marriage for your sister. You don't get to play the victim now. For the first time, I saw real anger in her eyes. Up until then, it had been mostly guilt, tears, and desperation. But this was rage. You'll regret this, she hissed. I promise you. Then she grabbed her bag and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The next few weeks? Surprisingly calm. I slipped into a rhythm with the kids, focusing on giving them some kind of stability. Every now and then they'd ask about their mom. Why she wasn't living with us. Why things felt different. I kept my answers simple. Mom and I are figuring some things out, I'd say. But we both love you very much. It wasn't exactly the truth, but it wasn't a lie either. I loved them more than anything. And I knew Maya did too in her own way. But that didn't change the fact that our lives were headed in completely different directions now. She'd made her bed. I wasn't climbing in it with her. And you know what? For the first time in years, I actually felt lighter. No more walking on eggshells. No more emotional chaos. Just me and the kids figuring life out one step at a time. And it felt good. Then came the legal stuff. The divorce officially kicked off, and with it came a whole new storm. Maya's lawyer tried to spin me as the bad guy, the heartless husband who abandoned his wife during a difficult time and refused to help with her child. But my lawyer hit back with the facts. The baby wasn't mine. I had no legal or moral obligation to be involved. And Maya had made the choice to go through with the surrogacy despite my objections that were well documented. It got messy, but I wasn't worried. I had everything: texts, emails, voicemails, every piece of proof showing that I'd been clear from the start. That I had drawn the line long before she crossed it. Even so, it was draining. Every time I thought I was done dealing with her drama, something new would pop up. Her family kept reaching out, trying to reel me back in with guilt and manipulation. Even Nina and Derek tried to get involved again, like they had any right to mediate anything in my life. I ignored them all. I'd spent enough time cleaning up Maya's messes. I wasn't doing it anymore. And somewhere along the way, I realized something crystal clear. I was done. Done with the guilt. Done with the pressure. Done with being the guy who always bent just to keep the peace. For the first time in a long time, I was finally taking control of my own life. And no matter how hard Maya or her family tried to pull me back in, I wasn't going. This was my shot at a fresh start. A chance to rebuild everything I'd lost and finally put my energy into the things that really mattered: my kids, my peace of mind, and a future that didn't involve constantly cleaning up someone else's mess. And for the first time in a long time, that future actually felt possible. After months of nonstop drama, I finally caught a glimpse of what life could look like without Maya's chaos hanging over my head. Was it perfect? No. I was still figuring out how to balance work, parenting, and the never-ending divorce proceedings. But at least now it felt like I was moving forward instead of circling the same storm. Maya mostly stayed at her mom's place, which made things a lot more manageable around the house. She still had her scheduled time with the kids, and while I tried to keep things civil for their sake, it wasn't always smooth. During one of her visits, the kids came home asking questions, ones I'd hoped I'd never have to answer. My youngest looked up at me, eyes wide and full of innocent curiosity. Is the baby gonna live with us someday? I took a slow breath, thinking carefully. No, buddy, I said gently. The baby is staying with Aunt Nina and Uncle Derek. My oldest frowned. But Mom said she had the baby. Doesn't that make him kinda like our little brother? I rubbed the back of my neck. How do you even begin to explain surrogacy to kids? How do you make it make sense without throwing their mother under the bus? Mom helped bring the baby into the world, I explained, keeping my tone calm and steady. But it's not the same as when she had you guys. This baby is part of Aunt Nina and Uncle Derek's family. My oldest nodded, trying to seem like they understood, but I could tell they were still turning it over in their head. My youngest, though, wasn't satisfied. But why isn't the baby like us? I hesitated, searching for the right words. Because sometimes adults make choices that don't match what we expect, I said carefully. But no matter what, you and your sibling are what's most important to me. They didn't push any further, but I could tell that moment stuck with them. It stuck with me too. Meanwhile, my own life was still a mess of paperwork and legal bills. The emotional toll of the divorce was bad enough, but the financial strain was starting to hit hard too. Maya's lawyer was now demanding spousal support, claiming she couldn't work because she had a baby to take care of. I sat across from my lawyer, frustrated beyond words. She made this decision, I said, my voice sharp. I didn't agree to any of it. And now she expects me to pay for it. My lawyer nodded, flipping through documents. That's what they're pushing for, but don't worry. We've got a strong case. The baby isn't yours. This was a surrogacy agreement she entered into willingly. And she has support from her sister and Derek. Still, no matter how many times I drew a boundary, Maya kept finding ways to try and pull me back in. She'd call, text, reach out whenever something went wrong, expecting me to drop everything and fix it. One afternoon, I was buried in work when my phone buzzed. It was her. I considered ignoring it, but I knew she'd just keep calling. With a sigh, I picked up. What is it, Maya? She was crying. Ethan, I don't know what to do, she said, voice cracking. I can't afford daycare and I need to start looking for a job. I just need a little help. Just until I get on my feet. I clenched my jaw. Maya, that baby isn't my responsibility. That's on you, Nina, and Derek. They can't help right now, she snapped. You don't understand what I'm dealing with. I exhaled slowly, trying to stay calm. No, what I understand is this. Every time you hit a wall, you come running to me. You expect me to clean up your messes because you don't want to deal with the fallout of your own choices. I'm done doing that. There was silence. Then she laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You really are heartless, Ethan. Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at my phone for a second, shaking my head. 5 minutes later, a text popped up. This time from her mother. I can't believe you'd turn your back on the mother of your children. I always thought you were a decent man. Clearly, I was wrong. How can you be so cruel? I let out a humorless laugh. Right on cue. Then I responded. Even I was surprised when I found out your daughter is the kind of woman who'd throw away her own family just to get knocked up by her brother-in-law. So don't talk to me about decency. And do yourself a favor, stop texting me. That became the pattern. Maya would hit a wall, and instead of leaning on Nina or Derek, the people who actually wanted that baby, she'd come to me. At first, I tried to be polite but firm. I'd explain my stance, repeat my boundaries. But it never mattered. No matter what I said or how reasonably I said it, they twisted it. I was always the villain in their version of the story. Eventually, I just stopped responding altogether. It wasn't my job to save her. And I wasn't going to let her guilt me into thinking otherwise. And yet, there were moments. Moments where I almost felt bad for her. Every time I saw her, she looked more and more exhausted, like the reality of everything was finally catching up. During one of our custody exchanges, she hesitated before speaking. Can we talk for a minute? She asked quietly. I paused, then nodded. Yeah, all right. We stepped away from the kids and she took a deep breath, not meeting my eyes. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she said softly. For everything. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing at the time. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to tell her it was too late. Another part wanted to ask her why she hadn't thought things through sooner. But instead, I just nodded. I hope things work out for you, I said. She looked like she wanted to say more, but I didn't give her the chance. Whatever guilt or regret she was carrying, she'd have to deal with it herself. The divorce was long, messy, and completely draining. But in the end, I got what mattered most. The kids. The court ruled in my favor. Full custody. Maya would have scheduled visitation, but I'd be the one making the calls. I'd be the one giving them the steady home they needed. It wasn't a victory. No one wins in a situation like this. But it was the best outcome for my children, and that was all I ever wanted. Maya tried to paint herself as some selfless victim. Her lawyer argued that she had only done what she believed was right. But the court wasn't blind. They saw what I had known for months: Maya was unreliable. She made reckless choices. And she used our kids as bargaining chips. I sat in that courtroom listening to her attorney spin the narrative, and for a moment I worried the judge might fall for it. But then my lawyer stood up and laid it all out. The chaos. The broken promises. The way I'd been the only consistent presence in our kids' lives. And in the end, the evidence did all the talking. When the judge announced the ruling, I felt something lift off my chest. Relief. Real, honest relief. Maya looked stunned. For a second, I thought she might cry. Maybe she truly believed the court would side with her. But reality had finally caught up. Outside the courtroom, she approached me again. I don't want it to be like this, she said, her voice shaky. I still want to be in their lives. That's up to you, I said calmly. But I'm not letting them get dragged into chaos again. If you show up for them, great. If not, I'll make sure they're okay either way. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I didn't stick around. There was nothing left to say. Now it's just me and the kids figuring it out one day at a time. It's not easy. Single parenting never is. But for the first time in years, our home feels steady. Peaceful. And that's worth every ounce of pain I had to go through to get here. Dear listeners, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for being here.